Sounds good. Thank you, Jonathan. And good morning, parents. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Chavez. I work for the Orange County Department of Education, and I'm very delighted to be here this morning to give you this presentation. But first, I just want to thank Jonathan and his team, his colleagues, for inviting me this morning to share this presentation with you. At OCDE, or at the Department of Education, I'm part of a team where we provide drug prevention services for our schools and districts throughout the county. And this presentation that I'm going to give you this morning, as you can already see, the title is Prevention That Starts With You. And I'm going to repeat this message for you throughout the presentation because, yes, the research shows that when kids learn from the parents the risk and dangers of drugs and alcohol, these kids are less likely to get involved with drug use at an early age. So that's why you as a parent, it is very important that you, once your children can understand or comprehend this topic, it's important that you start talking to them, sharing them the facts as far as the risk, once again, of early use of drugs and alcohol. Here are the topics that we will be discussing this morning. It may seem like a lot of information, but at the end of the presentation, or towards the end, I will provide you a link where you as a parent can go and download this presentation in English, Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese. So it's going to be available in different PDF files. And I'll provide this to Jonathan, and Jonathan can share with his colleagues, the other FACE workers, and you can reach out to them too if you need help finding this presentation. And this morning, I'm going to use the word parent, but please keep in mind when I use the word parent, not only am I referring to the biological parents of the child, but any adoptive parents, foster parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, older siblings, anybody that's in charge of the well-being of the child, that's who I'm referring to as a parent. Now, throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please put them down in the chat, and I will address any questions at the very end. But here's my first question to you. At what age do you think the human brain is fully developed? I invite you to, if you'd like, I invite you to put your answer in the chat. If you don't want to, you don't have to, it's okay. But I just want to invite parents to see, at what age do you think the human brain is fully developed? Let me open up the chat, see if there's any brave parents out there. All right, no, okay. Oh, I see somebody, okay, 25. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I see a lot of people putting in. So the human brain is not fully developed on average until a person is around 25 years old. For some people, it could be as early as 23. For some people, it could be as early or as late, I'm sorry, as late as 27 years old. But the average is 25. And oops, the last area of the brain to develop around the age of 25, it's called the prefrontal cortex, which in the picture to the left, it's represented in the pink area. Now, little kids and teenagers, young adults, they already have the prefrontal cortex, but it's not functioning at full capacity. And once again, it's not fully developed. Once it starts functioning, as you can see from the bullets that I have on the right-hand side, the prefrontal cortex helps us control our impulses as well as our emotions. It's our decision-making center, so it helps us make good decisions. It also helps us think of future consequences. So if I choose this, what will happen to me in the future? That type of thinking. And a lot of teenagers have a really hard time thinking that way because once again, their prefrontal cortex is not functioning at full capacity. So it's our problem-solving center, and it's also our voice of reason. So as you can imagine, if a teenager starts using drugs and alcohol, not only is it going to affect the structure of the brain and the development of the brain, right? But it's going to have a great impact, negative impact on the development of and function of the prefrontal cortex. And not only that, that's why another thing too, since a teen brain is still developing, they will become addicted to drugs and alcohol a lot quicker than an adult brain. We as adults, we can also become addicted if we start abusing whatever substance, but normally it takes an adult more time to become addicted, once again, compared to a teen where it's just a matter of weeks or months for them to become addicted if they start abusing drugs or alcohol. I'm going to skip this real quick. So I want to get into risk factors. So there are a lot of risk factors that could lead a child to start using drugs and alcohol. The first and foremost, peer pressure. Peer pressure is very, very powerful, whether it's in junior high, high school, peer pressure from the community, like in their neighborhood, but also as parents, we need to be aware that sometimes peer pressure can come from our very own family members, extended family. Okay, so we need to be well aware of that. Be vigilant. Lack of supervision, this just means that sometimes we as parents might work overtime, might have two jobs to provide for our families, and sometimes we're not able to be home when the children come home after school. And for some children, that could be a risk because knowing that their parents are not going to be home, they could easily wander off to other areas of town or parts of town where you normally do not allow your child to go. Social media. This should come to no surprise. Now, unfortunately, nowadays, social media can be a huge risk for young people, for teens, because unfortunately, people can get a hold of drugs and alcohol and paraphernalia through Snapchat, through Instagram. They can get a hold of vapes, electronic cigarettes, for example. And not only that, the tobacco, marijuana, vaping, and alcohol industry, sometimes what they'll do is they'll pay people to take pictures of themselves, kind of like an influencer, take pictures of themselves, whether it's drinking, vaping, or smoking, and upload these images onto their social media. And sometimes our children, our teens, will be exposed to these kind of images glorifying drinking, vaping, and smoking. Next, lack of school connectedness. What we mean by this is that for some children, for some teens, if they don't feel connected to their community and therefore to their school, this could lead some of them to start using drugs and alcohol. That's why we as parents, we have to monitor our kids, talk to our kids, just to make sure that our kids feel safe, that they're happy going to their school, and not only to the school, but their community as well. Making sure that they feel comfortable walking. If they have to walk by a park or by a high school on their way home after school, if they're walking in their apartment complex, for example, we have to make sure, talk to our kids, making sure that once again, they feel safe and happy in their community and their schools. And then lastly, easy access. Unfortunately, nowadays, it has become very easy for a young person to get a hold of drugs and alcohol if they wanted to. Like I said, social media has made it really easy. But an example I can give you is alcohol. Alcohol is all over the place in supermarkets, liquor stores, convenience stores, and sometimes we as adults even have alcohol in our very own homes. And this gives easy access to a young person. And I'm not saying that not only can our kids take our alcohol, but if we have guests over to our homes, if we have extended family coming over, we have nieces and nephews, right, as well. So it could be them that can be taking our alcohol, for example. And then I'm going to skip to the last point. In my line of work, I have come across junior high and high school students that use drugs. That is no big secret. And what I personally noticed from these teens, the reason they use drugs is because they're dealing with a lot of issues in their personal lives, whether it's family issues, mental health issues. And some of these kids are suffering from depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and a lot of stress. And unfortunately, the majority of these kids that are using drugs are using marijuana, quote unquote, self-medicating with marijuana. All right, so what you see on the screen, there's a survey called the California Healthy Kids Survey. This agency tries to administer a survey throughout the entire state of California for district schools that are willing to participate. And of course, if parents allow their child to take this survey. Now, as you can see, this survey has many, many questions, And one of the sections is on drugs and alcohol. Uh, what the results that you're seeing are the results of 4 of those questions on that survey. They were from the school years 2017 through 2019. They were 11th graders, 11th grade students. Now, it doesn't say on the screen, but these students were from Orange County, our very own county. And as you can see, the color black represents marijuana. Yellow or beige represents e-cigs or vapes, and blue represents alcohol. So the first question there, the question is, how easy is it for you to obtain these substances? So these students, 62% of these students reported that it's easy or fairly easy to get a hold of marijuana and alcohol. And 67% reported that it's easy or fairly easy to get a hold of vapes. Perceived harm. The question is, how harmful do you think these substances are from occasional use? So 42% of these students reported that they think the use of marijuana and alcohol cause little to no harm. And then 36% reported that they think that vaping causes little to no harm. So as you can see from that second question, the results of the second question, almost half of the kids that took this survey during these school years, they thought that these drugs cause little to no harm. And that's a huge risk, because if kids don't know the risk and dangers of early use of these drugs, once again, if they're ever offered or pressured, they might be more inclined to use. That's why you as a parent, it's very important that you start talking to your children about the risk of these substances. And not only that, what you should also be noticing is that the results show that for these students, the percentages for marijuana and alcohol are identical in those first 2 questions at 62% and 42%. And unfortunately, what that shows me is that for students, marijuana has become as normal as alcohol. And unfortunately, that's when we hear students say things like, well, marijuana is a plant, it's natural, it's not harmful. How can something that's natural be harmful? That's not true. Misinformation like that, which is very unfortunate. Okay, the third question, have tried. So the question is, have you tried any of these substances at least once in your lifetime? And the ones that reported yes, you see the percentages right there. And then the results of the last question, current users. So these are the students that reported that they currently use these drugs. So 12% of these students reported that they currently use marijuana, 13% reported that they currently use vapes, and 14% reported that they currently use alcohol. So as you can see from the results of those last 2 questions, alcohol is the highest. And once again, for some of the what we've talked about already, it's easy to get. Teens probably don't think that alcohol is harmful because maybe they see adults in their families drink. They see the commercials on the television. Maybe they're being exposed to these images on social media and so on. Okay, so I quickly want to talk about this trend that is currently happening with alcoholic beverages. So alcoholic companies, they're manufacturing and producing these hard seltzer drinks, which kind of, it's very similar to like a mineral, like mineral water with gas, but it contains a flavor and of course it contains alcohol. Now, for teens and young adults, like even early college students, these are extremely, extremely appealing because of the flavors that they contain. So I have some examples on the left-hand side with the dark background. You can see some examples of some of the flavors. There's strawberry lemon, mango, cherry, lime, apple, fruit punch, peach. And once again, for teens and young adults, has become extremely, extremely appealing. And if you as an adult have tried one of these drinks, a lot of adults, they'll mention how they can hardly taste the alcohol, which will even lead adults to drinking more than they wanted to. Now, the other risk, as you can already tell, is look at how these alcoholic companies design the container. They can design them in a way that where they use very bright colors, very attractive designs, and not only that, if you compare them to the non-alcoholic containers that I have on the right-hand side in the white background, uh, they people can easily confuse them for an energy drink, an iced tea drink, or some kind of fruit punch drink, or sparkling water, right? And look, even the Four Locos, they're pretty identical to the Monster energy drinks. Now, other risk for underage drinking, it should come to no surprise, legal problems, of course, for obviously the minor and possibly for the parents and any adult that provided the alcohol to the minor. Alcohol drinking causes all kinds of mental function issues and mental health issues, mental functions like body coordination, memory, concentration. And then lastly, death from alcohol poisoning or possible death from alcohol poisoning. Because once again, with these new hard seltzer drinks with the flavors, sometimes young adults or teens will drink more than they were supposed to because they cannot taste the alcohol. They think they can drink as much as an adult, but their bodies cannot process alcohol like an adult body. They tend to overdrink and sometimes, once again, leads to death from alcohol poisoning. So alcohol is the most commonly used and misused drug amongst youth for the reasons that we've already discussed. Easy to get their perception. They don't think it's harmful. And then lastly, with these new hard seltzer drinks with the flavors. All right, so on to vapes. So what you should be seeing on your screen is a picture of my coworker's desk. As you can see, she had a bunch of office supplies on her desk, but in this picture, there are electronic cigarettes or vapes. So I'm going to give everybody a few seconds to see how many vapes you can find. And once again, I invite you to put your answer in the chat, but you do not have to if you don't want to. So I'll give everybody a few seconds to see how many vapes you can find. All right, let me see. Let me open up the chat. All right, I see some people putting the responses. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Well, let me go ahead and show you. Okay, here come all the answers. All right. Some of you are saying 5, which is correct. There are 5 vapes or electronic cigarettes, but let's see if you pick the correct item, because sometimes people pick the wrong item. All right, there's the first one, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the 5 electronic cigarettes. So right away, you can see that these devices are very small, very slim, which makes them very easy to hide them in somebody's pockets, pant pockets, somebody's purse, somebody's backpack, in their messy room, or in their car if the teen already drives. And the other risk is the actual design of these devices. They're designed in a way where in this case, if you put them amongst office supplies, they can easily blend in with office supplies or school supplies, right? And so they resemble other everyday objects, like the Juul device connected on the laptop. Some people have said that it looks like a USB flash drive or a Wi-Fi hotspot router. This vape that's in the pencil holder looks like a pen or a marker. This one down here maybe could resemble a computer mouse. So electronic cigarettes, for the most part, they're filled or come pre-filled with a liquid that contains nicotine. And this liquid has a few names: e-liquid, e-juice, or vape juice. E referring to electronic. So electronic juice, electronic liquid, or vape juice once again. So I'll just use the term vape juice from here on out. This vape juice once again contains nicotine, which is the addictive chemical also found in tobacco products that is naturally produced in the tobacco plant. Nowadays, the nicotine is starting to become a little bit more synthetic than being extracted from the tobacco plant. Now, these devices, since it's the vape juice, the constant, the levels of nicotine are a lot higher compared to, I guess you can say, like a cigarette, for example. Now, there's different types of electronic cigarettes, but the ones that were in the picture, we put them there on purpose because those are the most commonly, or those types of electronic cigarettes are the ones that are most commonly found among teens that vape. Now, the trend that I talked about alcohol is similarly happening with the vape juice. The companies that manufacture the vape juice, they will add a flavor, which once again is extremely, extremely appealing to young people. Now, these flavors can range from all kinds of fruits, all kinds of candies, desserts, soft drinks, you name it. There's a lot of different flavors, and it's these flavors that it makes vaping extremely, extremely appealing to young people. Very sweet. Now, the aerosol itself also smells very pleasant, and I'll talk about that here in the next slide. So as you can see, some of the examples that I have here of the vape juices, not watermelon, excuse me, apple, candy, and bubble gum down below. And the other risk, as you can already see, kind of similar to what I talked about, the design of the alcohol containers, same thing here. These vaping companies, what they'll do, they'll design their packaging and their labels that imitate common food items. And I have some examples on the right-hand side. So you can see Mott's gummies, fruit gummies that kids love, but you can also see how this vaping company, they pretty much imitated the design or the logo of the Mott's gummies. Look at the label of this for this vape juice down below. Identical, similar colors, similar fonts to the label of the gum on the right-hand side. So once again, at a quick glance, a parent might think that this is just some kind of candy. So that's why we need to be very, 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 very vigilant. Now, an electronic cigarette, what it does, it'll heat up the vape juice, and then the vape juice turns into an aerosol. And it's not a vapor like water vapor. This industry was very clever and misled the public, letting people think that it was vapor just like water vapor, but that it was not harmful at all. That's why in the beginning people were even vaping inside restaurants. But now that the researchers have been able to study, it's not vapor, it's an aerosol. Because this aerosol, as you can see from this graphic, can contain volatile organic compounds, which at high levels can affect the body, carcinogens, chemicals that cause cancer, ultrafine particles, which can damage the lung tissue, heavy metals, which at high levels can poison the body, and of course, there's nicotine, which is once again the addictive chemical that is found in tobacco products. And like I said, when people vape and they release the aerosol, because of the flavor, these aerosols have a very, very sweet, very pleasant scent. But nevertheless, just be aware once again that it's an aerosol. And slowly but surely, there is such a thing. Researchers are coming out and saying there is such a thing as secondhand vape, similar to secondhand smoke. All right, so this is just kind of like a recap of some of the things that we've discussed. These devices are easily concealed. The vape juice contain high levels of nicotine, which for a teen, if they start using vape or if they start vaping, the high levels of nicotine will cause them to become addicted to these substances very, very quickly. And then the last risk of an electronic cigarette is that people can consume marijuana out of an electronic cigarette, and more specifically, THC concentrates or marijuana concentrates. So the marijuana plant naturally produces over 400 chemicals. Out of those 400 chemicals, there are two popular cannabinoids or two popular chemicals. One is CBD and one is THC. CBD, that's the one that you hear that could potentially have some medical use. People are still researching that, see if it could have some potential use. So you might see it in some kind in drops and lotions and creams, what have you. Uh, from what the experts are saying, CBD is not psychoactive. So in other words, it will not get people high. On the other hand, THC, from what the experts are saying, this one right now has no medical use, and all it does, it just gets people high. And someone like back then, a few years back or several years back, discovered a way where they can extract the THC from the marijuana plant. And then they'll process it, and then what they'll produce are, once again, THC concentrates or marijuana concentrates. There are several different forms of marijuana concentrate. The ones that you see here are examples of what's called honey butane oil. So this type of THC concentrate has a consistency of an oil or honey. And as you can see, sometimes dispensaries will sell cartridges that are pre-filled with concentrated THC that are compatible with the Juul device. This was the one that was connected to the laptop a few pictures ago. If you also remember the vape that was in the pencil holder that looked like a marker or a pen, these type of cartridges with the yellow background, these are the type of cartridges that will attach to that type of electronic cigarette. And this form of THC, this is popular. This is one of the popular forms among teens that use marijuana. And then here's the other popular form of concentrated marijuana among teens, and it's known as wax because yes, it has that consistency of a wax or of similar to Vaseline or Vicks Vapor Rub. Now, for our young people, for teens, for our kids, early marijuana use obviously comes with all kinds of issues or can lead to all kinds of issues. Now, same thing, whether it's alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, or other drugs, other street drugs that we will not have a chance to discuss this morning, will lead a teen to develop the same issues like mental function issues. Once again, learning, concentration, body coordination, attention span, memory, judgment of speed and time, reaction time. All these substances will lead kids to develop mental health issues like anxiety, depression, paranoia. Now, when it comes specifically to marijuana, there is research out there showing that for some people that abuse marijuana, they could develop schizophrenia. And then lastly, like I mentioned, we as adults can become addicted to these drugs if we start abusing. So as you can see, 9% of adults, if they use marijuana, will become addicted to marijuana. But since a teen brain is still developing, it pretty much doubles for teens at 17%. 17% of teens will become addicted. All right. So on to protective factors. So from this point on, I just want to talk about what can you as a parent do to help your child not get involved with drugs and alcohol, especially at an early age. So first and foremost, decision making. Now, you as a parent, this can be on any topic that you want. So start talking to your children that they need to make good decisions, whether they're at school, when they're walking home after school, whether they go out to the park. Once again, whether they go to their cousin's home, they have to make good decisions. So please, please, please start talking to your children about making good decisions. Talking about having clear expectations. Have you shared your expectations with your child? What expectations do you have for your children? Some examples could be you expect your child to, when they go to school, to work hard, to get good grades. Maybe you expect your child to go to college, to go to a university. Maybe you expect your child to not use drugs and alcohol, hopefully that's one of the expectations. All right. Especially at an early age. Now, for example, though, if you're a parent that drinks alcohol, the expectation can change there a little bit. Maybe you can tell your child, mom and dad drink alcohol, but we are already over 21. It's okay for us to drink, but the expectation is that you're not allowed to drink alcohol until you are 21. Once you're 21, if you choose to drink, that's your choice. Same thing for parents that vape. Uh, Similar, you can say that same thing. I vape, but I expect you not to vape until you're 21. If you once you turn 21, that'll be your choice. And then, of course, once again, marijuana. If parents use cannabis, please let your child know. The expectation is you should not use until you're 21. And once again, and you can discuss brain development once again, how they have to protect their brain and their body and their health. Setting goals. Uh, Talking to your children about setting goals, especially when they're very little. Setting goals can be anything simple, like learning how to tie your shoe, learning how to read, getting good grades, completing their AR goals when they're in elementary, when they're in junior high, getting promoted to high school, getting a good GPA in high school. And once again, these are just examples. Going to college, that's another goal, hopefully, because the research shows that when kids uh, have goals, they're motivated to accomplish their goals, and they will not let things like drugs and alcohol get in the way from accomplishing their goals. Not only that, when children accomplish goals, it lifts their self-esteem, it boosts them and motivates them to develop more goals and continue to achieve their goals. Stress management. As parents, we have to teach our kids healthy and positive ways of dealing with stress. Whether, for example, some examples, listening to music, going out for a walk. Um, One of the best exercises is deep breathing. Mindfulness or some form of meditation, anywhere between 3 to 10 minutes daily. The research really shows that when people deep breathe, it reduces stress, it improves memory, and it improves mood. So even when we're not stressed, this is something that we can practice at home, teach our children to use to practice whenever they're stressed, or even when they're not stressed. Uh, Refusal skills. Um, Teaching our kids how to say no to drugs and alcohol if they're ever offered or pressured to use. And not only that, but also talking to your kids what plans to come up with a plan. Let's say, for example, they walk into the school restroom and somebody's vaping in the school restroom. Coming up with a plan. Okay, what should your child do at that moment? Something simple could be turning around and go use another restroom somewhere else. Things like that, or what if your cousin offers you or pressures you? What plans do you come up with plans? Refusal skills. Extracurricular activities. What we mean by this is when a child is involved in a sport, soccer, baseball, basketball, in a martial art like taekwondo or karate or jujitsu, or an art like drawing, painting, singing, dancing, playing the musical instruments. All of these activities have shown to reduce stress in children, boost their self-esteem, have more success in school, and tend not to use drugs. So if your child shows interest in any of these activities or any type of activity, whether it's at school or outside of school, please support them, get them enrolled in any of these types of activities. Family meals. When the family sits down and whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and they're talking, they're socializing, it has shown that family meals can improve or can strengthen the bond between parent and child. It has shown that these children have higher self-esteem. Once again, more success in school, tend not to use drugs, and tend to be less stressed. So please, I know we're all busy. I know that not only are parents busy with their errands and work, but children, once they get to junior high and high school, they're also busy with classwork, with homework, with projects. But let's try to have as many family meals as we can. And when we have family meals, please make it a positive time. Don't use family meals or the time to eat as a time to yell at their kids for not cleaning their room, or yelling at them for not showering or doing their homework. Because if we just use that time to scold at our children, what ends up happening is they start associating family meals as a negative thing, and maybe that's when they'll next time they'll come with to the dinner table with their headphones on or on their devices because they already know that as soon as they sit down at the table, they're gonna get yelled at. And then positive affirmations, we just mean that when your child does anything positive, whether it's at school or at home or anywhere else, we as parents, what we have to do is acknowledge it right away. So if our child, for example, gets good grades at school, saying things like, well, I'm very proud of you. I appreciate when you work hard at school and get good grades. Or at home, if they do their chores, clean their rooms, help you wash the dishes, saying things, for example, like, thank you for washing the dishes. That really helps me out. I do appreciate when you help me, when you wash the dishes or clean the table or vacuum, what have you. Because these type of comments from a parent, what they do is, once again, it boosts it, a child's self-esteem, and it motivates a child to want to repeat these positive behaviors for you more often in the future. All right. So please, please, please start communicating the risk of drugs and alcohol to your child. Do not assume that they've already learned the risk or that they already know the risk of drugs and alcohol. Yeah, maybe they've learned them from school, but it'll be more impactful, more meaningful if they also hear this and being reinforced from you as a parent. Okay. Because I guarantee you that if you have children in junior high and high school, they already know about marijuana, vapes, and all these things. Not because they're using, but because maybe they're already seeing it at school, in their communities, in their neighborhoods, and within their own family. All right. And unfortunately, yeah, I've been to some elementary schools throughout the county, and slowly but surely, principals are sharing with me that they're already seeing it in the upper elementary levels too. So please, please, please start talking to your children. Now, just a few monitoring tips. Just know who your child is with. Get to know the friends of your children, and not only that, also please get to know the parents of the friends. All right. And if your child, like point number 5 says, if your child already has social media, please, please, please monitor their social media accounts. All right, just to make sure that they're not being exposed to any images. Once again, whether they're inappropriate or glorifying uh, drug use and alcohol use. Now, what if a parent suspects that not only a child, but maybe a family member is using drugs and alcohol? What should be done? First and foremost, look for evidence. Like I showed you a few slides back with these vapes, they can easily blend in amongst office supplies, school supplies, a messy room. So please look for evidence. Also pay attention to any physical changes. For some people that use marijuana, their eyes will get red. So that could be a potential sign that something's going on, might be marijuana use. Smoking and vaping cause sore throats, rapid weight loss. Smoking and vaping can cause a lot of lung issues, so pay attention to that as well. Pay attention to sleeping and eating patterns, and also changes in mood and personality. There's also a lot of isolation. When a child starts isolating themselves from the family, that's a red flag, something's going on. And then lastly, a decline in school performance or a decline in school grades. That's another sign or something that could potentially can mean that a child might be using drugs and alcohol when there's a decline in school performance or grades. Now, once again, hopefully not, but if you discover that your child is using drugs and alcohol, what you should do, the first place you should go to ask for help is the school. As a parent, you should not be afraid, you should not be embarrassed to go to the school and ask for help, because schools and districts nowadays have many resources. I know for Anaheim, you all are very lucky because you have a face liaison at every school site, a wellness center, I guess you can say. There's the districts also have therapists and counselors that are not only there to help the child, but the family. And also, if the school and district cannot help, maybe they can refer the family to an agency in the community to receive professional help. So to end our presentation here, just pretty much use what you use what you learned today. Start talking to your children, start sharing the facts. Because if we don't talk to our kids, share the facts at the risk of drugs and alcohol to our children, they're going to receive misinformation from friends and family that are not the most positive influence from social media, YouTube videos, online misinformation. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here in a little bit, I'm going to put a link. It's for a parent survey. If y'all can fill it out for me, it'll also be available in other languages. You just have to click on it to change the survey into a different language. But if you can just take 5 minutes to fill this out, click on the link. It'll open up a web page for you, and you can start filling it out. Like I said, it should take less than 5 minutes, but it really helps out our program to know that if we're doing a good job, also to all understand or if there's other topics that parents would like for us to discuss. And then I will put a second link. It's a Google folder with a bunch of resources. So this presentation that I just showed you will be there in English, in Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese, in a PDF file. And there are other resources that talk about the dangers, once again, of these substances that we discussed: alcohol, vapes, marijuana. And there's also guides or articles that talk about how can parents talk to their kids about this topic once again. So now I will address any questions. There's my contact information, Mike Chavez. There's my email, my work email, my work phone number. If you do not feel comfortable asking your questions this morning in front of other people, you can always send them an email or leave me a voice message, and I'll try to respond to you within 24 hours.